Hello, Mike.
Hello, Julian.
What?
You mean what?
Well, you didn't say it in a very friendly way, did you?
What?
Hello, Julian. I said
Oh,
hello, Mike. Be cheery. Say hello, Julian. Try me civil.
what are you on about?
I'm getting Helen Silver-MacMahon on to talk to you about civility right now.
Okay, go on then. Do it.
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Hoad.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
Here she is.
And hello, Helen.
Hello, Helen.
How are you?
Helen, hi. I'm Julian. That's
Hi,
Mike.
Mike.
Could be vice versa. I can't remember. One of us is Mike. One of us is Julian. And we sometimes forget. So,
And this is Helen.
and Helen. And that's
I'm
Helen.
Helen.
Helen, what on earth are you doing here?
I don't know. I just fell in.
Say, hey, are you qualified as a veterinary nurse? Is that right? Registered veterinary nurse.
Yeah.
Tell us about your background, because we've jumped straight into the business
Yeah.
side of things,
Yeah.
as we normally do.
Wipe off.
We norm-
Jump out a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We normally ask a couple of difficult questions at some point during the evening, but Julian's been avoiding that, particularly this evening, I think.
No, I'll ask it tonight.
You're going to ask the difficult question, are you?
Oh, okay. I look forward to that.
It's an icebreaker, so you're just going to get on with it.
Should we do it? I'll ask it. I'll ask it
Go on
now.
then. Go on then. Go on.
Ah,
I
okay.
dare you.
I am. I'm going to. I'm going to.
He hasn't asked in over 130 episodes. He has not asked the difficult question.
I almost asked it once.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's a difficult question. It is. I think it can make people feel a bit uncomfortable, and it actually has in the past, hasn't it? It's made some people feel quite uncomfortable, but it's not intended to be. It's meant, and I'm bottling out again. I can't do it. Mike, could you do it just this once more, and then I promise next time I'll ask. Is that all right?
You want me to ask the difficult question?
All right. Just could you actually, seriously, Helen, Mike asks it very well with a lot of compassion.
And this is because you get uncomfortable. It's not because of our guests getting uncomfortable.
I get
Every time we ask this question, our guests flow through it. Some of our fans even come up and share the answer to the difficult question.
They do. They do. But I feel awkward.
Obviously.
Sorry.
So, Helen, I'm ever so sorry about this. I do apologise on his behalf. So the question that most of our listeners really want to know, Helen, is what is your favourite bread?
My favourite bread. Oh. Sourdough, I think.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Quite fashionable.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
because I quite like it at the weekends with maybe a poached egg on it.
Oh,
Just, yeah,
Ooh.
Saturday morning treat.
oh, now you're talking. Now, how do you do your poached eggs?
Oh, well, I'm not very technical. I just put them in the pan, just crack them into the pan, and they'll be what they'll be. 2 minutes, that's it. Hoy them out, and that's it.
I've got to jump in here about this thing because I saw a clip on Insta the other day. That's down with Gen Zs. And this Insta influencer was going, "Oh man, if only I'd ever learnt this. You don't have to fry your eggs in oil. You can fry them in water. I'm never going to go back to frying eggs in oil. You can fry eggs in water and look how they come out." And of course, for all of our Gen Z listeners, and I'm sure there's lots of you out there, that's called poaching.
Yeah.
It's had a name for a very long time, and it's called poaching. It's not called frying in water, it's called poaching.
And technically, of course, frying reaches a much higher temperature, something around 300 to 400 degrees centigrade,
Indeed.
causing changes to the surface of the egg. A
Indeed.
certain type of reaction that we all know. I won't go into it again, things with it. Whereas boiling, obviously, is a maximum of 100 degrees centigrade, which causes massive hypercoagulation of both types of albumin within it. Anyway, moving on.
That was so informative. I've learned stuff already.
Every now and then.
Specialist subject there, I can tell.
We both like cooking. We both like eating anyway.
Both like cooking. I'm getting into this whole Gen Z, Gen X thing. I'm finding it fascinating to listen to Gen X moaning about Gen Z.
Oh, yeah, no, it's true, but I wouldn't moan about them because actually they're incredible.
Okay.
Incredibly what? Sorry, I missed the last bit.
No, so incredible.
Oh, right. Just
Yeah,
incredible.
you just have to keep Gen Z very motivated. You have to find their passion. And when you find their passion, they're the best employees you could ever find.
So why, I guess the implication there is that they're not very highly self-motivated. And obviously we're generalizing hugely here. But
No, it's not that they're not self-motivated, it's that they are very good at well-being. So the thing that us veterinary professionals are not good at, that superhero cape thing that we do, forgetting to eat our lunch every day because we've got lives to save and all the rest of it, they're actually a little bit better at saying...
Right, I thought I'd left my cape hanging up. Right. The cape thing, yes, carry on.
They're a little bit better at saying, actually, for my well-being, I need to take breaks, or I need to finish at this time, or I need to go to the gym at this time. And they're a bit better at managing their time that way and putting boundaries in place than previous generations. Within the time that they're at work, when they're engaged, when they're passionate, when they're motivated, they're brilliant, really clear thinkers, clearly motivated to do that job. I think the bad rap sometimes comes when we don't respect the fact that they have better boundaries than us. They actually are better at saying, no, I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to stop for a break and what have you. So I think we've got a lot to learn from Gen Z. I think they could be the way forward in dragging us all along to actually hopefully make our well-being better within the veterinary profession. So yeah, you won't find me being rude about Gen Z at all.
So here's the scenario that work's due to finish at 7 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock a patient calls up, or an owner calls up. Patients generally don't, unless it's a minor bird. The owners call up and say that the pet has a problem, which the vet then recognizes as a problem that they're going to need to do a long workup on, and probably a splenectomy, for example, or a hymetrectomy,
or pio.
And so they then say, no, I can't see that pet because it'll take me over my allotted time of work, and we'll refer it instead to an out of hours place who can look after it, do the op. I judge not, I just ask, is this a scenario that perhaps we see? And
yeah, it could be, it really could be. So I guess it's about managing the expectations and them understanding, the individual understanding that might be the case, and setting that up so that it's not an unexpected ask. I think that might be one of the things, but I'm straying into territory I'm by no means an expert in. Just a little bit of an interest in how we motivate different groups within our veterinary population, and making sure that we understand and work together in the best fashion possible. So that's my interest in it, but I'm by no means an expert.
So are you suggesting then that because we work in a complex socio-technical system...
Did I write that?
the buzz point for you there, Mike. Well done.
That we should set our colleagues' expectations before we reach that point at 6 o'clock when the phone goes?
I think people have to be prepared that it might happen. I think if you've talked about the fact that this is when you interview somebody for a job and you say, actually, this might happen some days, this is part of what your job will entail, then that's forewarning them and helping them understand that. I think it's, well, for me, if I've got something planned and then somebody asked me to just drop that, I could understand that people might find that a bit upsetting. Obviously, when I was in clinical practice, I was just so excited to be there. I was quite happy to stay for as long as I was allowed before I was kicked out. So it was a bit different in those days. I was just turfed out occasionally, told that I need to eat and sleep and come back refreshed.
That's right. You're falling asleep on the patient. This is too long.
Yes, it's rude.
It is a complex subject, because the scenario that you outlined, first of all, of someone who knows their boundaries, know that they need a break, know that they have got a club to go to that evening, and therefore want to arrange their working life to have clear boundaries. And I'll mention boundaries twice in that sentence, but that's a good scenario and will lead to a good work-life balance, which I think every vet nurse, receptionist, one who works wants. And yet the old fuddy-dud is, and I include myself in this, harp on about the nostalgic days of yore where there was a professionality. We were part of a profession, and the profession didn't stop at 7 o'clock when we finished.
Resilience.
Yeah, and I think both views have their place, certainly, but the clear answer is that we can't do the working 36 hours and then having a couple of hours break because you had a really crappy night on call, but you're due again to work the following day. We can't sustain those anymore. Life has changed, society has changed, the socio-technical bubble world, as Mike said, that we live in.
Complex socio-technical system.
Yeah, so there's got to be space for both views, hasn't there?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's about understanding each other's perspective and having empathy and compassion to each other to understand how each of our preferences are. We don't all communicate in the same way. We don't all have the same work preferences. Some people might be happy to work, I don't know, 3 or 4 days of really long shifts and then have time off. Some people might want to work maximum of 8 hours a day and have a long sleep every night. That might be how they work. It's preferences and understanding those so that we hopefully can work with everybody so they get what they need.
I've seen this on an email today.
Yeah.
And I saw that the signature at the bottom of the email said, "Kind regards, XYZ. My pronouns are she, her.
Yeah.
My working pattern is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If this does not fit in with your pattern, then I'm very sorry. But if you can, please try to respect my pattern." And I looked at this email and I thought, oh my God, what day is it? Luckily, it was still a Wednesday. I got away with it, I think. But interesting. That's the first time I've ever come across this.
I've come across it, and on one of my email footers, I have my working hours might be different to somebody else's working hours, and that people shouldn't feel pressurized to respond to me when I send the email. And I think that's really important because we all have this, we're all hardwired as humans for this immediate returns, the idea that we can order something online today, it can be delivered tomorrow. Sometimes when you receive an email, you might pick it up on your phone whilst you're watching the TV in the evening or what have you, and you might think, oh, I've got to reply to that. But actually, people need to be reminded that whilst they've received it then, there's not always the expectation that they're still at their desk. They could be watching the TV, and actually they should enjoy that and feel that they can actually respond tomorrow. It's only strange people like me who keep strange hours and reply whenever I get the chance. So it might be on a Saturday night while somebody's out partying, and I don't expect anybody to reply at that point.
What, like your ex or something? At 3 o'clock in the morning when you've had a skinful.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you.
I think Helen was talking about other forms of responses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
But it's interesting. I'm wondering how I can use this to my advantage. Would it be okay for me to put on the bottom of my email, I'll get around to this when I feel like it? Or would that be rude?
That might be that you could. People might find it amusing. They might not take it seriously, but you could.
It's not going to work, is it?
I'm not sure it's your strongest tactic, to be honest. You might want to have a rethink on that.
Yeah. I'll answer this email on the 111th of the month.
Yeah. Or when hell freezes over.
It's true. I tend to get quite stressed if I know that there's emails can wait. Usually I'll acknowledge that I've had an email, but I won't always answer the email in full till I've got time to do it. But a message is somehow different, because, to be honest, usually because once I've read it, it doesn't show up as unread anymore. I think, oh, I better answer that or I'll forget it.
That's the danger, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you read it, then you're stuffed. If you forget, which you will, you're stuffed.
But the worst thing is you answer it thinking, great, that's done. And then they answer you back. Well, question. You think, no, I don't want to have a conversation now. I'm watching Heart to Heart or whatever it is. Not, I mean, it's good, serious, but you just want to say, okay, look, I've answered that question. Now go away for 24 hours.
That resolves the matter. Please
That
don't
resolves
text again. You need an
You can put
automatic
that on the bottom of
reply.
your email thing.
Yeah, exactly. If
I
I've
trust
replied
this.
once,
I trust this has totally resolved the matter.
Yes. If it hasn't, please don't hesitate to sort it out yourself.
My emails are going to rock from tomorrow morning.
I can imagine there's going to be a paragraph under there of options.
Just making some notes. How do you spell? I've got PHTHPHT.
I'm going to go out on a limb here because, to a certain extent, this setting boundaries, for example, the taking a break and making sure that everything's okay. And Julian and some of the listeners will know that I drive an electric car, which makes me feel good because I'm attempting to do something good for the planet and blah, 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 blah. And I know there's for and against. But one of the things that the electric car makes me do is it makes me have a break because it can only drive for 3 hours. And if I was in an old diesel chugger or an ice machine, then I'd be quite tempted to do that 7-hour journey in one hit and arrive fast asleep in the back of an ambulance. But my electric car actually forces me to take a break. And I reframe that in my head as this is a good thing, particularly for safety and the well-being of me, my passengers, and other road users.
Definitely. And there's good research behind that. Something that within human healthcare, they've done lots of work at St. Guy's and St. Thomas's. A doctor called Mike Farquhar did a campaign called the HALT campaign. And they did lots of research and they found that patients were better attended to, they received better care when they were looked after by doctors and nurses who'd had adequate rest breaks. And it makes sense, really. Like driving, you're more likely to make a mistake when you're tired. And why would we want to be looked after by people who are too tired to look after us? And by extension, do we really want people looking after our pets who are too tired to think straight? It's
absolutely. Who was it telling me the other day that if you're a pilot,
yes,
you'd phone in and say, oh, I'm too tired, I can't fly a plane today. And they say, all right, no problem. You're absolutely right. Why can't we just say, look, I'm terribly sorry, I can't do this PIO because I'm hungover as hell. No, I'm tired because
I'm emotional.
anyway,
tired and emotional. Yeah.
If for whatever reason you don't feel able to do it and it goes wrong, then you can't really, in all consciousness, stand up at an RCVS disciplinary committee and say, yeah, I was absolutely on my ball for that game and feel happy that I did it.
Yeah.
It sounds stupid saying, I really felt that I shouldn't have done it, but I still went ahead and did it.
But it's what we do, right?
Absolutely.
How many of you, unless you've got a leg half hanging off, who doesn't go to work? We were all taught that, come on,
yeah,
get there. I remember going to school many times. My mum's party line was always, if you're that bad, the school will send you back. Don't worry.
Yep.
Yeah, but that was pre-COVID, wasn't it?
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now all you have to do is look a little bit watery-eyed and you get sent home, as I understand it, or sneeze or cough. That's
because no one else in the practice wants to get ill for a week.
Yes.
We didn't worry about it before, did we? There was no thought of, oh, so-and-so's come in and given us all a cold. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
It was, oh, they're taking the day off for a cold. Great. Now I've got more work. And now it's, okay, they've taken the day off. Great. So we're unlikely to get that cold.
Yeah. We're all going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The super vet complex, that's what you call it, I think, in the guide, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. The idea that we don't like to admit that we're humans. We are really driven professionals and we don't like to step away from what we're doing because it's more important to us. We're driven by purpose and passion, and therefore it's more important than our own well-being. And that can really lead us into a lot of trouble, sort of personally, for our own well-being.
Interesting. Can I turn the clock back, Helen?
Yes.
What got you into all of this?
Well, originally I still am a veterinary nurse. I started off I qualified in 2000.
So why did you want to become a veterinary nurse?
Why did I? Well, I wanted to work with horses originally, and I really liked horses. I worked at stables actually from the age of 14, earning rides. I just brought up in a way that was really that if you want something, it's not just given to you, you go and find a way to acquire it. I was offered a position at riding stables. I wanted to ride as much as I could all of the time, as many horses as I was allowed and all the rest of it. And the answer to this was that if I went on a Saturday and Sunday and did a bit of mucking out or what have you, I was guaranteed at least one ride. So for me, it was a win-win, right?
So you were in the business?
I was in the business, but we live quite near to Newmarket, and I think my mum was a bit scared of a couple of things, that I would suddenly have this idea I could become a jockey, and I'm quite tall, I'm 5'10", so that was never going to work. And the alternative was a lot of mucking out. So she said to me, why not look at different species of animals? Why not look at cats or dogs? Try that. So my neighbour was a veterinary nurse, and she invited me to go and see practice with her. And that was it. I was sold. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a vet nurse.
All right.
And that was from the age of about 14. I got a Saturday job, an evening job, a holiday job. Whenever they would let me into the practice, I was there doing whatever I was asked and loving every moment of it. So I fell into the job knowing that it was something that I would enjoy. And I've been a vet nurse for almost 27 years now, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely, just still love practice. I don't get to do as much clinical stuff as I'd like
Doesn't
to.
look old enough.
Thank you.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
You're welcome.
What of you, Lee?
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I've just went through my career just being curious, really interested. I did several certificates. I did the advanced diploma in vet nursing. I did all of these bits and pieces and wanted something a bit more chunky to get my teeth into. And I worked at the Animal Health Trust until it closed. I was one of the senior surgical nurses there, and a role that I really loved, but I became really interested in the sort of the way people work together and the problems that we had when we were inviting people into the theatre. You know, we had a stable team, and then people would come in on rotation, or they didn't, and they always found it scary. They found it really terrifying. Somehow crossing the theatre bench, getting dressed in scrubs and all the rest of it was something that was a little bit scary for people, and it made it difficult to communicate, work as a team, that kind of thing. So I became really interested in that and the link to patient safety. So I ended up doing a master's at Edinburgh in patient safety and clinical human factors. And now I'm doing a PhD in the non-technical skills that veterinary nurses need when monitoring and maintaining anaesthesia. Really catchy title, isn't it?
The non-technical skills.
Yeah.
Can I backtrack before we go to that?
Yeah.
Because I'm not surprised that people coming into the AHT were somehow in awe of the environment that they're working in. And to our American listeners who may not have come across the AHT, it's sadly now closed. But that was one of our leading research centres and a charity working in the heart of Cambridgeshire, Newmarket, Cambridge area.
In everything, it's a centre of excellence.
A centre of excellence in every way, and doing pioneering research. Sadly, in the British way, charitably funded, which doesn't really work. But I'm not surprised people are intimidated there. Yeah,
I think
so. That main atrium with the glass ceiling and the magnificent building.
Yeah,
so.
And for me, it kept my standards very high. I remember I would often think to myself when I'd been there on a long shift, perhaps there was an emergency that had come through to theatre, that moment of thinking, I'm so tired. And then I'd remember where I worked and how much I loved it and how important it was for me to do my best every single day. And even silly things like putting the bins out. We didn't leave bin bags in the corridor because why would you? Because it was the Animal Health Trust, and you wanted anybody to walk in and think, this is a hospital, this is a serious place to be. So it was the small things, but it really inspired you to do your best and to grow and to learn. And that sort of learning culture really fed through it in every department. So it was an amazing place to work. And we still grieve for the loss of it, to be honest with you. It was an amazing place. So.
Very much so. So sorry, Julian, I interceded there, but I think that's important because the AHT was a diamond in the rough.
Incredibly, absolutely. And hopefully all the amazing people who work there have gone on to do amazing things as you have and as you are. Helen. So can you get back to this non-technical skills that the veterinary nurses need to monitor anaesthesia? Because Mike and I often go on about the technical skills that are needed to monitor anaesthesia.
Or is that just a definition?
Yeah.
I don't know. Helen,
So
help.
what are the non-technical skills?
That's what I'm researching at the moment. What we know is that when you go to veterinary school, when you go to nursing college, wherever you go, whatever your pathway in is, you get taught a lot of the theory. You get told you have a lot of knowledge, a huge amount of knowledge, and you know all about anatomy and how to do the job. But nobody spends the time, or historically we haven't spent the time teaching people how to communicate, how to make decisions, how to be leaders. Leadership is something that's generally the person who's been around the longest, is clinically excellent, and who is therefore promoted to leadership, because we assume that because they're clinically excellent, they should be a good leader too. Communication, have a nice situational awareness. Nobody teaches us how we learn to gather information, how we can anticipate things. But as a veterinary nurse, that's a fundamental skill. I want to know before the vet what the vet wants. So I have to be really good at anticipating what might happen next. So that's likely to be a skill we find. And obviously managing fatigue and coping with stress is really important in our environment. So these are some of the things that could be considered the non-technical skills for veterinary nurses. And in human healthcare, they've done a lot of work establishing what the skills are, and then building training frameworks and assessment frameworks around the skills. So rather than saying, okay, we're going to throw you in and you're going to have to communicate, they actually teach you to communicate and teach you how to have difficult conversations. Or if you are in civil, if you're a surgeon and they assess your non-technical skills and there's a deficit in that area, then they offer you further training, or they offer you guidance on how you can improve yourself. And it's great because it attends to those things that we know can be really detrimental to our working environments and undermine the cultures of our fabulous associations and places we work as well. So it's really important, but it's very overlooked, and the study in this area is very embryonic. We're just getting there, but something that I'm trying to lead in the veterinary nursing sphere.
I can see the fascination with this, because give me that bloody retractor said to the wrong person is, how rude, you've offended me. I'd have just given them the retractor, but I'd probably trodden on their foot whilst I did it.
Yeah.
Or giving them the wrong one just to be...
Or given the wrong one just to spite it.
Yeah.
Or maybe dropped it.
But a good veterinary nurse should know, she should be able to gather the information, the first level of situational awareness, then she should be able to interpret that information, and the third level is anticipating. If you've made an abdominal incision, as your scrub nurse, I would know that at some point in the next few steps, so I would have the retractor ready for you and say, is this the correct size? So you haven't had to ask me, I've already offered it to you. You might have to say, actually, I think we can go a bit bigger or what have you, but hopefully my situational awareness is good enough that I've actually have the experience, have the ability to pattern match to say, I think this is probably the one you're going to want.
Is that not painting over the cracks in my ability to communicate?
No,
is that not making too much of an allowance for my inadequacy?
No, I think because when you work with people, you understand what their preferences are, and then you can increase efficiency. So that exchange of you having to ask, if I can make my best guess, as it were, as to what you want, I offer you that, and 9 times out of 10 it's the right thing, then we're creating efficiency. We're removing that time lag. So we're making actually the operation quicker, smoother. And this is always my argument for why we should always have scrub nurses in the room when we're doing complex operations, because we can get into this flow state, and what you find is the operation flows quicker, smoother, less complications. I'm probably able to, if I've done this operation several times, I'm probably able to anticipate what also might go wrong. So if I start to see something going wrong, then I can ask for the equipment to be brought that might solve that problem should it occur. Or I could have prepared the trolley, so I've already put that nearby, so we can cut time down and we can actually react and respond quicker. So our performance increases, which is human factors. The aims of human factors are to improve performance and improve well-being. So in this case, we're using that non-technical skill to increase performance, and hopefully then we'll get our lunch break because we've managed to get through it quicker and smoother, less stress.
Agree with that completely.
Yeah.
The last set of nurses I worked with at my old practice, most of them were almost presentient, and I'd say, Marie, can I have the and she'd say, yes, it's next to you. Yeah. Oh yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I've been in that practice, and it was, do you want the lavender wipe on your brow today, Julian, or would you like the time one?
I'll say just a bit of powder to take away the shine, if that's all right.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But you took a lot of beating to get them into that shape, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of shouting, a lot of instruments thrown, a lot of really harsh words, which I think they're
training sessions.
Yeah.
Lots of incivility, a high level of incivility.
Yeah, absolutely, because that works, I think. I haven't read your book completely, but I think that works. A little bit of incivility goes a long way, is what it amounts to.
I tend to disagree.
Excuse me?
Actually, I believe you're going to be telling us specifically about civility in a minute at some stage, aren't you?
Oh, is that a cute?
I
wonder whether we get onto that now.
Come on, then.
So,
do you time me?
Eagle ear. Oh, do we time you? Down to the
timer and everything. So I take it that you're up for the 60-second CPD challenge, then?
I am. I definitely am. I've prepared a little bit. I've practiced. Whether I've got it nailed as 60 seconds, I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
So what are you going to do your 60-second CPD on then, Helen?
I'm going to talk about civility saves lives and why behaviour matters.
Civility saves lives and why behaviour matters. Okay, here we go. 60-second CPD. Helen Silver-MacMahon on why civility matters, starting now.
So incivility is rude or unsociable speech or behaviour. It can be direct or indirect. Direct would be public humiliation. Indirect would be being dismissive or withholding information for personal gain. Within the veterinary profession, incivility is the most common type of client incivility is the most common type experience, but co-worker incivility is frequently perceived too. 98% of employees experience incivility at least once in their life. 50% of employees experience it once a week. Incivility is defined as the interpretation of the recipient by the recipient, regardless of the intent. When we experience incivility, our brain perceives a threat. It elicits the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. Our brain focuses on escaping the threat, and this causes a 61% reduction in cognitive bandwidth. This means we can't think rationally and reasonably. It means we make mistakes. When we make mistakes, it's possible that these affect our patients. So remember, incivility means we can't think straight, make mistakes. This could lead to the death of our patients. Therefore, civility saves lives.
Fantastic. Perfect.
Very good.
Perfect. So short answer, being rude makes you flustered, and that can injure your patient.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing, really. I think we don't realise that when we experience rudeness, our cognitive bandwidth shrinks so much that we can't. It's when somebody shouts at you and you've at the time you come away and you think, oh, I could have said that, or I could have said that, or I should have said that. And that's because at that moment it's almost like a signal jam in your brain. It goes, oh, I need to react and respond, and you can't speak properly, you can't problem solve, you can't do any of those things. So it's really important, because obviously when we feel like that, our patients are affected. And the research is really interesting around it.
It is. And I think we've all felt bad at some stage because of something a colleague has said. We certainly have at something a client has said, but I think we all have at something a colleague said. And I suspect that if we don't feel bad about something that a client had once said, then we were the bullies and the uncivil person saying it. But it gets you all manner of upset, doesn't it? You feel inadequate, you feel put upon, publicly shamed or ashamed or embarrassed or stupid in some ways. You feel angry, you feel frustrated, all those things. And as you say, 61%, you say, a reduction in
cognitive bandwidth. The research done by Porth and Pearson suggests a 61% reduction in cognitive bandwidth when we experience rudeness.
That's huge. That's almost half. Sorry, I was a bit cognitively bandwidth restricted because of something that Mike said earlier. But yeah, it's.
But I think the key to it is that it's the way that the message is received.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter how gentle we may feel in leveling a criticism or a critique or issuing an order or a request. It's how it's received that's a critical part.
Yeah.
So what? Okay, so I've experienced it. I've experienced it in a job recently. But so what do we? How do you resolve that? Which end of the chain do you work on?
So for me, it's both ends. So I
Right.
would suggest to people, try and apply empathy, try and apply compassion. So if somebody is rude to you, look beyond the fact that they're being rude and ask, why are they being rude? Why are they behaving in that way? What's causing them to behave in that way? Because it's probably something, we know that 98% of people go out to do a good job every day. They don't go out to be horrible. They don't go out to be incivil. But things happen. We have external stressors, work load, things happen at home, and then we can turn up at work not as our best selves, and that can result in us being incivil. We can be very stressed perhaps. So I always say to people, why do you think that they might be behaving in that way? What can you do to understand them, and what can you do to support them in that? The other thing I always say to people is, it's probably not you. That's the thing. As humans, we always like to make it about us. We always say, oh, they don't like me. It might not be anything to do with you. It might just be that you're in that position that day. So we have to bridge this gap. If we think that somebody is being incivil to us, then we need to look beyond that incivility and say, actually, why? But on the other flip side of that, we have to be really emotionally intelligent to say, actually, how am I behaving? And do I need to apologise for how I'm behaving if I might have been perceived in the wrong way? Because that is an incredibly powerful thing to do. You can apologise for a misunderstanding and it will put you back on track almost immediately. It's so restorative. The power of apology is so important. So I always say to people, we're all going to be incivil one day. Everybody is incivil sometimes, whether it's at work or at home or wherever it is. We're going to find ourselves in this position someday. So accept that. But it's what you do next that really counts. If you do experience incivility, if you do have somebody who's incivil to you, then what we'd suggest is that we ask people to find somebody to help them with this. I've changed the guidelines in the last week. I went to a CSL Civility Saves Lives symposium last week, a gathering of a group of healthcare professionals talking about incivility, and we talked about incivility and the way that we manage it. And we previously used to say that it was important to empower individuals to discuss incivility with the person who is being incivil to them. But unfortunately, that can empower the perpetrator, that if somebody is doing it for the wrong reasons, that can be very empowering and very detrimental. So what we suggest now is that you ask somebody to help you. You ask either, if somebody witnesses it, for them to go and make the person aware of how they've been perceived, or you set up a system in practice where you have certain people who might be happy to have this conversation, and they go and they have this conversation. And it's a very gentle conversation. We call it calling out with compassion. You go and you ask the person if they're okay, because we recognise that generally people who are okay don't act with incivility. Then we ask if they realise, or we take them back to that moment and we make them aware of how they're perceived, and then ask if they'd realised that they had been perceived in that way. And by educating people, making them aware of how they've been perceived, it really reduces the reoccurrence. It gives people the opportunity to do the right thing, to apologise or to rectify their behaviour. And it's very powerful. So the stats around that, because I know veterinary people love stats, is that if you had 37,000 instances of incivility, if you had one of these conversations, it would reduce it to about 2,000. And then if you had another of these conversations, if somebody was incivil again, with a little bit more feedback, then that would reduce it to 200. So we go from a huge amount, 30,000, down to 200. And for me, that's enough proof in the research to say that this conversation is worth having, or worth trying to have and establish as a way of working in veterinary practice, a kind of part of the culture, a rule to live by, if you were, so that you can start to have conversations rather than people reporting on each other, because we know that doesn't work.
I have worked with vets in the past who have been uncivil to the point of aggression, verbal aggression. And I've had those conversations, and other people have as well, and it hasn't had the desired effect for longer than a few weeks. And I think in those cases, it's been quite clear to all of us that there was some root stressor behind the uncivil person's uncivil actions. And we eventually sorted it out, thinking of one particular case, obviously, by persuading that person to get some counselling.
Mhm.
And what one counselling session seemed pretty much to do the trick. We went on and had several. But so you said earlier about sort of self awareness on it, or some thinking through the process, what could be causing this. I think quite often we just think it was a rude thing to say, I don't like him anymore, don't like her anymore, or as you say, that they've really got it in for me. And we don't perhaps stop to think the human thought that actually they're probably not a bad person.
Yeah.
Is there something more serious going on?
Yeah.
It doesn't help at the time, does it, when you're being made to feel very small?
No, it doesn't. And it is a practice that you have to develop. It's hard. And that's another reason why we don't suggest that people go and speak to the person that they perceive to have been incivil directly, because with the best will in the world, you're never going to remove that bias. If somebody's just torn a strip off you, you're not going to go back and go, oh, hey, how are you? You're going to be like, just what does strangle you still? We understand that, and that's why it's important to get people to help you so that we can start those conversations and restore things to how they should be. It is a practice. It is kind of gathering that understanding that we're all human, we're all going to make mistakes, whether it's a technical issue. Sometimes we do silly things at work, don't we? You pick up the wrong drugs or what have you because of the way that they're designed or what have you, or we're going to do something silly at some point, and that can be behaviorally, that can be socially, it could be technically, but it's how we go forward from really important.
Yeah. And both of you mentioned that actually civility or lack of civility is often more about how it's perceived than how it's meant. So it can often be meant a completely different way from the way it's taken. And a good example of that, again, is someone I used to work with who would always address me as Oi Baldy. And it was a friend of mine from college. And much humour ensued after these comments. But one of the nurses that we worked with got terribly upset because she thought that he actually didn't like me and was just being rude, and I was putting up with it. And so she got defensive for me and aggressive towards him.
Yeah.
The scalpel incident? Was that the scalpel in the back of the hangers?
Yeah.
You called Julian Baldy again, and you're going to get this further up.
He's okay.
Yeah.
He still can't sing baritone, but there we go.
There we go.
That's very true, because not everybody understands and this was another conversation we had at the symposium that I went to last week, was the need to understand banter is not always a good thing, because banter between two people, we might have developed a social norm. So for you and the person you work with who was calling you, that you're okay with it perhaps, but people in the periphery, they don't understand. And when you witness incivility or you perceive witnessing incivility, that can be detrimental to your cognitive ability as well, and it can make you less likely to want to help. In fact, when people witness incivility, they take a step back, they start to feel uncomfortable. As humans, we don't want to be near that, so we go, oh, I don't think I'll get involved or go somewhere else, and that can be difficult too.
Yeah, I know a couple who were constantly bickering with each other, but actually they feel stressed by what each other says to the other one, and that's how they live their lives, and they've now been married for 30 odd years.
I thought you were going to say, and they started a podcast called Veterinary Ramblings.
We've never had a bad word to each other, have we, Mike?
Two old men bickering away.
Yeah.
No, that's because I just put up with it.
I do a podcast with my sister and we have a lot of fun, but somebody said, me and my sister are very similar, except she has dark hair and I have blonde hair, and she rather rudely pointed out that I also would have dark hair if I didn't spend a lot of money at the hairdressers, and I was very taken aback.
That's
I
terrible.
literally said to her, do you know that civility saves lives? It could save your life one day.
Right.
Yes,
Keep
Or-
saying
or
things like
not.
that.
absolutely.
Brilliant.
So how much do you spend on your hair?
Oh, a lot of money. It's very important.
Are you
Yeah.
working out how much we save, Mike?
Yeah.
You have no idea. It's a nightmare for women, nightmare for anybody with long hair, really. Doesn't really matter about gender.
I just used to tie it up with a rubber band.
Absolutely, yeah. And then put it in a bag.
No, I just tie it up with a rubber band. Just put it together, scrunch it together, put a rubber band on it.
Oof.
That was it.
Doesn't that weaken the follicles, though?
Yeah, pull. Nasty.
The amount of money I spend on conditioner for my eyebrows is obscene.
Yeah, I can tell. High quality eyebrows there.
It's worth it. It's worth
Yeah. Yeah. Can we stop talking about bodily hair? I'm feeling uncomfortable.
it. You're taking it the wrong way, Mike.
Yeah. So what's this podcast you do then, Helen?
My
Come on,
sister
shout out.
it's called How to Thrive. We so Being Human, which is one of my sister's company, has 2 arms, and one is in
2
the
legs, a head, body. Yeah.
and
Twice a day. Oh yeah, we know. Yeah.
it's half in the legal sector, half in the veterinary sector. So I head up the veterinary sector, and Claire heads up the legal sector. After lots of chatting about human factors, Claire decided that the legal world needed some of this as well. So we now do that. And there's a big law firm in London who very kindly look after us once a month, and we go in and record podcasts, and we talk to lots of different interesting people about random things that help you thrive. So we've done things like, we spoke to somebody who did coaching with tarot one day. That was quite different. We've talked about coaching with tarot. Yeah, it's
What, Chris Tarot, the guy that does Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the comedian from the West Midlands?
Oh, as in tarot cards, as in the tarot
Joker and the Death card and
yeah,
the
exactly.
castle and
Absolutely. We're thinking of Solitaire from Live and Let Die, aren't we? James Bond.
It was very similar to that. No, not at all. It was very interesting. It's the idea is that it asks the question that you wouldn't normally ask yourself when you're being coached. So an interesting way to look at something differently. But we've had people talking about well-being and just lots of different aspects of things that can help you thrive. Networking and there's been lots of different ones.
And you've used the word thrive.
Yes.
A lot, and that's an important word for me because I had months of dreading to go to work on a Monday because I knew there was going to be a slew of emails from my bosses whipping me into action for the week, telling me that the practice had made no money and we needed to see more people. And I then needed to tell my overworked and stressed staff that they needed to do more and all those things. I love work. I love being a vet. I love every aspect of it other than the being micromanaged part. And we all have our stressors, don't we? We always will. You mentioned somewhere that 98% of, more figures, 98% of vets are stressed or say that they have been stressed.
98% of people experience
vets and nurses and receptionists, etc. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if everyone did not just cope with work and enjoy bits of it, but thrived? And to thrive means to do as well as you can out of every situation. Now, when I go to conferences, and I go to conferences quite a lot at the moment, being in the BSAVA business, I always feel invigorated. I come back thinking, wow, this is great. I knew I loved my job. I've just been speaking to 1,000 other people who really love their jobs as well. Yeah. And so that brings us round to something you sort of always threw away, this sense of community, of belonging.
Yeah.
And that, would you say that is one of the most important aspects of well-being, mental being at work?
Oh, for sure. You go back, not just now, but you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is ancient old, and you have physiological needs, you have psychological needs, so safety needs, psychological and physical safety, and then you have love and belonging. And that's really important. If you want to reach self-actualization, if you want to be the best version of yourself, to be happy, then you have to find love and belonging. And I honestly believe that is so important, and something that I think, because of COVID, has been a little bit damaged within our profession, because the problems we see with clients being in civil, I think, stem back to those moments in lockdown where they had to wait outside the practices. For us, when we can debrief with other people who are like-minded, who might have been in the same situation, even if it's after something absolutely horrendous, we know that's incredibly restorative. Again, that connection with other people, that feeling of belonging within what we do. And I really honestly think that sort of fires our passion and purpose and carries us forward, even if we're not having the best day. If we feel like we're connected to something bigger, something with more purpose, then that's the definition, I can't even speak now, of transcendence, right? Being connected to a higher purpose. So that's beyond thriving. That's where we need to get to that. We have to feel that connection.
The nirvana of work.
Yeah. Which seems silly, right? There might be some people who sit and think, what on earth are you talking about? Work is just work. But what I've realised working in the veterinary profession is that, obviously, I went to school with, I don't know how many people in my class. A lot of people have changed profession. They haven't, or it's changed significantly, or they don't like their job. Talking to my sister about being a lawyer, she's always said to me, I wish I did something that was really worthwhile. I wish I was a vet nurse. I wish I did something that, like you do. And so I think we should be incredibly grateful that actually we have something that's so purposeful that we can actually see results from. We can feel that belonging, and that we really are doing something that matters to people. Yeah.
Yeah, and every aspect of our job should be that, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Even euthanasia, sorry to bring the mood down, but even euthanasia is good death. What a privilege we have in our profession of being able to stop suffering or prevent suffering. What a privilege that we can pop in one day and save a kitten's life by giving her a vaccine. And Mike and I were both very lucky to be called up to do vaccinating during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
We've spoken about it many times, about the experiences we've had.
Vaccinating humans?
Vaccinating humans, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That must have been an experience and a half.
It really was. It really was. And some of our work was dealing with people who really didn't like vaccines.
Yeah.
Were terrified. Others, particularly with the older people, you could see the relief on these people's faces as they thought, great, I don't have to isolate anymore.
Yeah.
And we tend to forget those little things. Actually, everything we do, whether it's giving a worming tablet, giving a bit of advice on feed, clipping an ingrown nail, everything we do is designed to help to ease suffering, prevent illness, and fulfill our Hippocratic oath.
Yeah.
So we should get a real buzz out of everything we do.
We really should. I honestly believe that. I think, and more people choose to have pets rather than children. And actually, I've blessed to have 2 children, but also have a dog as well. And she's definitely the baby of the family and treated like royalty. In fact, I think sometimes the children just wish they were treated like the dog. So,
there are ways you can do that, of course, Helen.
What, treat the children like the dog?
Yeah, you might have trouble with the council or the RSPCC, but
yeah,
you could do that.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of trouble, but
we've just had an amazing CPD session.
We have.
Really good, and I think it would behoove everyone to
certificate.
I've got a certificate for it.
Fantastic.
So
let's get our RCVS certificate out.
There we go. Now, this is going to take some explaining. I don't know if you've seen the previous certificates at all, Helen.
No, I haven't seen them, no.
All exquisitely handcrafted and bespoke. This says, certificate of you keep a civil tongue in that head of yours, young man. And what needs some explaining is, there's me with some face paint on.
Yes.
It looks a little odd.
True.
It's a tree. It's a tree. Not only is it a tree, but it's a tree that is the motto of the school I'm chair of governors at. And the motto, the vision of the school is work hard and be kind.
Yeah.
And that's instilled to the children on this one.
And the board of governors, all led by
the board of governors.
Yeah.
I was at the May Fair in May, And I always paint my face for it because I'm the shouty man or the MC. And so I had the school motto drawn on me. So it's be kind. And we teach that to the children from entrance, from 5 years of age. That's one of the three most important things they should do at school. Be kind to themselves, be kind to their fellow students, be kind to the staff, be kind to anyone they see.
Yeah.
Random acts of kindness. Below,
I don't know if I get into trouble if they're not, though.
Watermelon on my head.
Yes.
I put that in because I thought, well, we need to keep a cool head, don't we, sometimes?
Yes, and a watermelon on your head is definitely a way
Watermelon
to
head would do it. It may not work during surgery, but your head
Julian,
cools
that's just
down.
not cool. That's not
And-
cool, and the expression isn't cool anymore.
Isn't it?
No,
Oh,
no.
that's totally sick, man.
Yeah.
Well, no,
I don't know what the expression is nowadays, but it's not
They don't say
cool.
man anymore, do they?
I feel I should know this, but I'm afraid I don't. It's not coming to my mind.
Help me out of this quagmire of lexicology.
Yes, get on with it.
And then if we can't keep a cool head and be kind, then we end up loosing off on someone. So this is someone doing
Yeah.
clay pigeon shooting. And I must have really hated those clay pigeons that day. On the other side, we haven't quite got onto this yet, but two pictures of a dog. The top left picture, this little Cocker Spaniel, is half-heartedly listening. But in the lower one, it's really listening, isn't it? And you
Yeah.
mentioned that in your book, listening skills.
Yes,
The-
active
the-
listening and listening to
Active
understand.
listening. And there's something more than that, isn't there? Because you can actively listen with a view to already having made up your mind what you're going to say.
Mhm.
Or you can actually listen and think, I'm going to keep an open mind, wait till they're finished, and
Then give them both barrels.
then give them both barrels. And so the dog's doing that. He's decided that actually, no, he's not just going to get a biscuit, he's going to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the bottom, this is the first time I've done it, I've photographed a little excerpt from a newspaper, and it says, "Maneth maketh money." This is from the Times a couple of years back. And it says, it's a letter from a reader. It says, "Your correspondence on multi-tier pricing reminded me of a cafe in Courts-sur-Ciel in southwest France. They had the sign, en café, €2.60. En café, s'il vous plaît, €1.80. Bonjour, en café, s'il vous plaît, €1.30. We were always scrupulously polite.
That's good. I like that. Will I get a copy of this certificate?
I will email you a copy. Yeah. So that's your 1 minute CPD. We can all chart that, can't we? We can put it on.
No, you can't.
Can we?
Why?
No, you can't chart it.
You're right. We've forgotten something, haven't we?
Yeah. We have to reflect upon our CPD.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're right.
Helen, if I could ask you another difficult question, please.
Yes.
Which is not what do you have on your favourite bread, which is sourdough with poached eggs on a Saturday morning, which is rather nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a reflective question for our audience?
Ooh. I think I would ask people to reflect on the times that they have experienced incivility, if they've perceived incivility, and just to reflect on whether they think that the person who they perceived was incivil might have had something else going on, and whether that lesson is something that we can take forward to help us next time to ask the bigger picture question of why might this person be behaving in the way that they are, and what can I do to help them, rather than defaulting to the kind of this person is maybe a bad person. Reflect on what we could do differently next time, what we can really truly learn from this lesson.
So take a step back and consider.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not go straight to guns.
Yes, exactly. Never straight to guns. Try and walk away, do the adult thing. But I think sometimes it's not always easy, is it? None of this is easy, but I think sometimes just giving ourselves those moments to sort of practice breathing even. I think that's something that I talk to a lot of people about, and some people are very skeptical about sort of breath work and being able to breathe through these stressful situations. But yeah, it's something we've got to do anyway. So if you excuse yourself to go to the toilet and you take 60 breaths on the way back, then actually what that's going to have done is reconnect your amygdala and reduce that threat feeling and response. And you might be able to say the words you want to say rather than the words that you don't want to say in that moment.
And sometimes the words, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
are the cheapest and easiest way of diffusing the situation, even if it's not your fault, because actually it really doesn't cost an awful lot to say that.
No, exactly.
It's
We're not
not
admitting that we're at fault if we say sorry. We're
absolutely no.
just saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel like this. I'm sorry that this is happening.
Yeah. I'm sorry you're such a mindless. Anyway,
So, Helen, how can we find out more about this sort of stuff that we've been talking about, civility and all of that good stuff?
Well, one of the simplest ways is to follow me on LinkedIn, and then you'll also have the bonus of hearing about an event that we're running in November the 13th, so it's the day before the London Vet Show. It's very sneakily a little bit of a fringe event. It's just one stop away on the tube from the XL, so it's in Woolwich in a beautiful fireworks factory. No more fireworks there, thankfully, but it's a beautiful scene, and we're going to be talking about how to thrive as a leader. And it's not just for vets, for vet nurses, every member of the profession, but it's learning how to lead successfully. You can be a leader in a position of leadership right now, or one that aspires to be a leader in the future. We're going to talk about things that perhaps we don't get taught about. So how can we use AI to work smarter, not harder? How can we understand cultural humility, or how can we be more culturally humble? How can we understand what it's like from different people's perspectives? We're going to have a deep dive on civility. We're going to look at leading for the future. We're going to look at so many different subjects. It'll be a jam-packed day, and then end with a little bit of networking, a little bit of that connection, that finding other people to be in your tribe. Yeah, I hope that people will join us.
It's fantastic.
I hope to get there myself.
Yes, please do.
So, to all our listeners, if that's what's ringing your bell,
Yeah.
drop us a line. Don't forget to like and share. And veterinarramblings.com is always being updated. And please, please, please subscribe, because it really does make a big difference to us. And if you've got time, check out Helen's web podcast as well, which is called, Helen?
How to Thrive.
How to Thrive. And there you get a cross mix between the legal and the veterinary world.
Yes,
Sounds
the
good to
delicate
me.
blend.
Sounds good to me. So, brilliant. Helen, on behalf of our listeners, can I thank you so much for sharing so much of your life and your times and your work with us at Veterinary Ramblings. It's been an absolute privilege to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very
Pleasure.
welcome. May your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you.
And with you.
Cheers.